thank you for being here. Welcome to Dwell Church. My name is Matt Stefan. I'm part of the leadership team here. We're about to kick this story night all the way off. In a moment, our host Eunice is going to give you a little coaching because as the listeners at Story Night, you are actually part of the event. There are no spectators. You'll have an important job of listening this evening. A little bit about the dream of what Story Night is for Dwell Church. Early in the journey of discerning what Dwell Church maybe could be, we started to ask the question, what does it mean to be a storytelling community? And as we contemplated this question, I was recalling in my own youth that, Minyang, do you know if you could turn off this great hip-hop music? I'm super into it, and it's distracting me. So, Drew's got it. Okay, got it. Okay. I grew up in a Pentecostal church, and most Sundays, two things would happen. One, they would ask if anyone had a testimony they wanted to share. And the other, they would ask, if you got hit with the bus, do you know where you would go at the end of that encounter with the bus? Those were the two ways that my church ended every week. Neither one landed well with me as a young adult or a middle schooler. I remember thinking, you've heard me say before, do we have a problem with buses in this town? What's going on with that? The other thing I witnessed was sometimes people would tell very compelling, very heart-wrenching stories of what God was up to in their life. And the other thing would happen in the open mic testimony time is that it would go horrendously off the rails. Sometimes people would do or say crazy things. And so churches moved away from story sharing because sometimes it went wrong in ways that were quite memorable for me. So we have tried to find out what it would mean for us to redeem the sacred task of storytelling. So our storytellers have been invited to share a specific story. They've been given some coaching. And we've been trying to work their stories around a particular theme. Tonight the theme is, what do we do while the world is burning? Now, the reason we're talking about that is something that we do every 6 months at Dwell Church is what we call community discernment, where we sit around tables and we go for an extra 90 minutes of this service. And every table has a group project that if they had 4 weeks of Dwell Church, what would they do with it? What would we talk about? What would we read in the Bible? What would we sing? Would we do any of that? Maybe we would just sit silently for a whole hour. Maybe we would make a maze out there and we would walk around and contemplate how life is confusing. We don't know exactly which way to go. What would they do? And this time in this previous community discernment, the primary question that emerged was, what do we do while the world is burning down around us? And everyone in the room felt the power of that question. In some way, we are all asking that question. And the reason we made that the theme of this particular story night is that we believe implicit in this community is a lot of spiritual resources to answer the question, what do we do when the world is burning around us? In fact, what we're going to do, I think, over this fall as we contemplate that question is that we are going to remember together how good and faithful God is. So tonight there'll be 4 or 5 stories around that theme. They might be loosely connected. They might, in the end, have nothing to do with that theme, but some certainly will. And you will be in the good and gracious care of Eunice, who's on our leadership team. So why don't you give it up for her? She's our host for this evening.
Hi, everyone. This is one of my favorite evenings to host. And just to add to what Matt said, Dwell is a storytelling church, and part of being a storytelling church is that it matters who tells the story. It matters who has a spot up here on this glorious elementary school stage. And that is you. You are our community. So this discipline of community storytelling is such a bedrock to who we are. So today we're going to hear 5 stories, about 10 minutes each. And what's important for you to know is these are people who are so brave to come up here and share a little slice of their life with a topic like what to do when your world is burning. It's a slice of life that might be a little bit difficult. So the vulnerability of coming up here and telling that story, we are putting in the trusting hands of this community. You have a job to do too. The storytellers are going to be brave, and your job is to do some really deep listening. And part of that deep listening is to sit and ask questions on what is my role in this community? How can we be a community who holds this range of stories? Mark Yaconelli, in his book, Between the Listening and the Telling, says this: transformation occurs in the space between one heart and another. To be heard by someone who is present, open, and caring is to be led into freedom. And so I hope after each story, we all feel a little more free, that we have a God that can hold this range of stories, this range of experience, and this range of wrestling with him. And so we're going to get things kicked off today with, I'm going to do an introduction of Mark Sapien. Hang on. I'm doing let's clap for a second. There we go. There we go. Oh, no. Hang on. Don't look. Okay, there we go. All right. Mark is, he calls home San Jose. I asked him what he does, but to use words that normal people can understand. So he says, I'm a customer success manager at a software company. Essentially, I show clients how to use our software in their day-to-day work. I asked him what is his go-to comfort food or song when the world is falling apart around him. And he said, Days to Come by Bonobo. And he said yes to this invitation to tell his story because Matt confronted him in the parking lot. So beware as you come in through the parking lot. Could be anyone. All right, Mark, get us kicked off.
All right, hi everyone. My name's Mark. I started coming to Dwell in March of 2024 with my husband Juan. And it's been a really great journey so far, so I'm excited to share this. When I first heard this theme, I thought, wow, I'm so excited. I get to hear all of these great stories and sit and enjoy it. It might be a little messy. It'll be great. And then Matt asked me to share. I'm like, all right, I'm the messy one. Got it. So my story is one of a lot of joy and happiness, and it's also one of recovery. Now, when I heard what to do when the world is burning, it felt relevant because right now that's what it kind of feels like for me. 2 weeks ago, my company decided that our department is not performing up to standards, so we all got a performance plan. I might not have a job at the end of October. I'm also in school. I want to go to nursing school, so tomorrow I have a microbiome exam, and I don't feel prepared for it. And it's just in general, life just feels like it's unstable. However, I did pick up a few tools back in 2020, so I'll pivot to how I usually start this. My name's Mark, I'm an alcoholic, and my sobriety date is April 19th, 2020. So I'll try to get through that addiction story pretty quickly. I'll give you the TLDR. When I was in high school, I wanted to be a doctor. I was going to go to medical school. So that was my plan when I got to college. I got there, discovered alcohol, and everything completely changed. Fast forward to graduation, I am now a bartender, no longer going to grad school, and I'm surrounding myself with people who keep saying yes to everything that I'm doing. And that's what my life became. I was just bartending, not really a great thing to do when you're addicted to alcohol. And that was my entire goal. In 2017, I get my first DUI. That happens, and I surround myself with other people who keep saying yes. They said, Mark, it's fine. Everyone in San Jose has a DUI. And I'm like, okay. I'll just keep going then. And that's what I did. I didn't care. And meanwhile, my family doesn't recognize me. My friends don't recognize who I am. I'm still drinking like I was in college, and everyone else was doing a lot better. And I got to the point where I was just drinking every day. And I also realized that it was not sustainable. And I didn't wish my life would end, but I also was okay with the fact that I probably wouldn't reach the age of 30. And I stayed with that. And then in 2020, COVID happens, and I start drinking alone. And I get to the point where I'm drinking a handle of vodka a day. If you don't know what a handle is, that's good. So in February of 2020, I get my second DUI. 3 weeks later, I get a third DUI. At this point, I don't know who I am. No one around me understands what's happening. They're like, Mark wanted to be a doctor, and now he's in jail for his third DUI. none of it made sense, and everything really did come crashing down. And then the County of Santa Clara bestowed upon me a very beautiful, expensive, big ankle bracelet. And it was an alcohol monitor. And so that actually gave me the clarity that I needed. I stopped drinking. And I had this moment where everything just clicked. I cannot tell you what happened. I don't know. I really can't describe it, but everything clicked. I had this moment of clarity. And then I just surrendered. So that's really the first point that I want to make, is that whatever your higher power is, whatever that looks like, sometimes you just have to surrender the pain and give it over. So I gave it over. And then I started working a program. I found AA, I found a sponsor, went to rehab, and everything started to finally change. Now, my higher powers always looked very different. At one point, I called my higher power Cosmic Mama. I grew up, my mom's side of the family is Catholic. My dad's side, he's an atheist, and my grandma's Jehovah's Witness. So I grew up with a very punitive idea of God, and so to me, it felt a lot easier to relate to a more divine feminine. But that's what I called God, Cosmic Mama. Sometimes it was nature, sometimes it was La Virgen de Guadalupe. Nowadays, it's the Episcopal Church as well. I was confirmed in that church in April, just because it feels like home to me because of the more Catholic aspects. But regardless, that's really the biggest thing that we say in AA, is being able to believe that a power greater than yourself could restore you to sanity. Once I did that, it became more so a matter of doing the work and being able to reach out for help. Because not only did I have to admit that I was an alcoholic, I needed to ask for help. And I was very surprised when everyone wanted to help. Everyone said yes. I didn't have a license. I had to be driven everywhere. I had to ask for help with that. Like these little things throughout my life, I no longer could do on my own. And so those two things are really what got me here now. And I know how much that means to me. And in April of 2020, I did not know where I would end up. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. All I knew is that I believed, and I had to take it one day at a time. And now, I was realizing over these last few weeks, and I was thinking about this, and I was thinking I was not in the right state of mind to talk about what to do when the world is burning because I'm not doing it in the right way. I realized I've done this before, and it was a much bigger struggle before. So if there's anything you can take away from this, it's if the world does feel like it's burning and you feel overwhelmed, remember you can surrender that pain and pass it over to God. And then the second point is to ask for help, whatever that looks like. Your community, for me it's a queer community, AA, church. All of these little communities are really what come together to support us when everything does feel unstable. And yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Before you go, Mark, I always like to ask, what is one thing you'd like us to kind of collectively toast or celebrate together?
A toast to hope in God's hidden plan.
Thank you. Our third storyteller is Amanda Whitlinger, formerly Farbstein. Okay, Amanda calls San Mateo home, and she is an actor, a tap dance and acting teacher, and a choreographer of kids' musicals. Her go-to comfort food or song, she said she doesn't have a comfort food or song, but she watches comedy, and she's currently rewatching Modern Family. Okay, she said yes to this invitation because I want to give to this community in any way deemed helpful, of which this is very helpful. So thank you. Come on up.
Thank you. Well, Lea Salonga, I was just, I'll be so excited. It's Mulan, Miss Saigon, Aladdin. I'm going to pee my pants. I am an actor, so I'm supposed to be used to adrenaline, and it doesn't get easier, because this is me. I will likely cry many times. I'm just letting you know that. I think I brought a tissue. So the nuts and bolts. Okay, I got it. I do. I had a mental breakdown at the end of 8th grade in 2003, and that catalyzed 9 years of anxiety and depression, and ultimately culminated in elevated states and hypomania my junior and senior year of college. I'm going to try not reading this. I'm going to try looking. I haven't told this story publicly since it began 22 years ago because it can really backfire. It's a very invisible agony. And my concern is always, oh, you don't know what suffering is. You know, like the environment now of like comparative suffering. I was talking to Eunice about this. Something that I come back to a lot is you can only feel loved to the extent that you feel known. And what I love about this right now is giving people full space to tell their stories. The problem is if we see one another's pain as threat, then we can't really feel known and loved. And anyway, I just needed to say this because this is a very, very big deal for me to do this. Okay, so by the time I went fully hypomanic 10 days after graduating college in 2012, I'd cycled through 11 different medications at that point. My symptoms had ebbed and flowed. I'd been varying degrees of functional at that time, and I think many of you who were raised in the church will appreciate that. Right before I went hypomanic, I took the 3 meds I was on currently, and I put them in the cleaning solution Resolve, because I'd resolved to wait upon the Lord. You guys remember that song? I have decided, I have resolved. I thought that was a dope move. Again, clinically insane at the moment, but I still think it's dope. Ultimately, it was after firing my psychiatrist via email in my hypomania, signed Grace and Peace to in our Lord Jesus Christ, that she and my therapist correctly diagnosed me with bipolar 2 and got me on proper medication for that diagnosis. So 13th try for the win. I've been stable ever since. This is a really long time, so that's amazing. That is a miracle. Yeah! Yes, thank you. Woo! Go Team Sanity. I still deal with PTSD, but EMDR has really helped finally. So we were like, woo, and I like bring you down. I know. It's like you think you're great, and then all of a sudden you just get like shocked again by some weird PTSD thing that makes no sense. It's like, I love reading. I open a book, it feels like, oh my God, I'm gonna die again. But I'm so much better. So we'll keep the high. This is bipolar, by the way. Woo, boom. It works for acting. Okay, so what I did while my world burned, and while it still burns, is I write obsessively to God. My very sweet husband, unbeknownst to me, was researching bipolar. He said one of the things is that, what did you say? It's like somebody's like shooting you with a machine gun of words. And he said that to me, and I was like, this is why I pray, because if I don't shoot my machine gun to words to God, then everybody else has to deal with it. So that's what I do. And I thought the best way to give you a glimpse into how this kind of was to read you some of those letters to God throughout this time. And it's really just experience them. So go with me. Okay, so this one was 18 years ago. I was 18 years old, fresh out of high school, November 5th, 2007. God, I truly am hating life at this moment. I'm so trapped by fear and anxiety, and I'm so sick of saying it over and over and over again. Why won't this stop? Why does life have to feel so complicated? Why am I so unhappy and discontented? Why can't I just quit? Why do sports or anything else to learn the lesson of not quitting when we learn it hard enough through life? The fact that we don't commit suicide seems a huge feat to me. God, I don't know what to do, what to think. I'm so sick of purging my emotions only to have to repeat it again. I'm an emotional bulimic. God, I'm so angry and tired and frustrated and angry and tired and frustrated and lonely and angry and frustrated and frustrated and frustrated and frustrated. I want this to end. I want to feel okay. I want to relax. I want this madness to stop, but it seems so helpless. I'm so tired of fighting. I'm so tired, and I feel so alone. I feel so overwhelmed. I want this to end. I want this to end so bad, Lord. I don't want to think about the pain. I don't want to think about the pain of life. And I'm not overwhelmed by purely my pain, but the thought of others' pain, of misunderstanding and hell. Why do people have to be so stupid, God? Why do we have to be doomed to a life of failure? How can we fight with passion if we're doomed to fail? It seems the logical thing to do is to fight with reason so that we don't get overcome with emotion that leads to failure, but lack of emotion is itself a failure. I had bad theology at the time. God, why does life have to, this is what bad theology does to you. God, why does life have to be so bad? Why do we have to be so bad? What stops me from hating myself and others? What stops me from being mad at you for creating us in the first place? The only thing that stops me is your word. I am living on faith, God, because I don't see reason for life. I don't see purpose for life. I don't understand. I hate this pain. I hate food. I hate ambition. I hate judgment. I hate conflict. I hate misunderstanding. I hate prejudice. I hate, all caps, people, 1 million exclamation points. How could you possibly love us? Why do you love us? Why couldn't you have just wiped us out? Why can't we just cease to exist? Why can't you just abolish people? Not send them to hell, but annul our existence. God, if you could just wipe away my judgment of myself, why can't I stand myself? How can I ever cohabitate with others if I hate myself? I know I don't entirely hate myself, but this is all caps. God, my stupid stomach, I hate it. 2 lines of exclamation points. I hate my stupid body. Why won't it go away? Why can't I go away? Why do I have to be such a burden to myself and others? Why won't this stop? Make it stop, make it stop, make it stop, make it stop, make it stop. So that was 18 years ago. This was 3 years after that. This is this really weird hybrid. This is me, but me at a younger time. So 3 years after that, I've moved on to Westmont College miraculously, and the depression starts hitting more. So this is New Year's Eve, 2010, all lowercase. God, I'm so sad. I feel so depressed. I don't want to pray right now. I'm too tired. But God, I'm such a failure. I'm so tired. I can't take my thoughts anymore. I just can't take them. I'm scared of life. I don't want to live it. Why does everything seem to take so much energy? God, I can't stop my obsession with body image. It's an idol. I can't seem to be okay without looking okay. But God, I've gained weight. My face is coated in acne. God, it's going to have to get worse before it gets better. I spent so many years trying to defend myself. I can't stand being guilty. I can't accept it. I can't really own it. I don't want to. I'm angry at you, God. You're the author of all. I'm so broken and I'm helpless against it. How can we be so deserving of complete torture? God, I don't want to accept it. And because I can't feel fully guilty, though that's not true, I feel guilty all the time, but it just doesn't seem fair. Why is life so hard? I'm too weak. I do want to thank you that my stomach is getting better, but God, why do I not feel that love for you that powers the entire Christian life? I feel like I'm missing the most important ingredient of all Christianity. I think I've been harboring resentment against you. I don't even fully get why. I know that nothing can ever be your fault, but God, I'm so in the dark, and I guess I don't feel accepted. I don't really believe that I could just relax and you'd love me or let me into heaven. There's so many passages in the Bible that also talk about works and obedience and divine disapproval, so all this talk about full grace just doesn't seem to settle it. I'm expected to obey, and since I don't feel freed by you, how in the world can I do it out of thanksgiving? I run on fear. That's my battery, and I just don't know anything else really. God, I feel like I'm reaching my end, but I always feel like I'm at my end. Does it ever ease up? I don't really have joy, God. I run on fear, and it's so uncomfortable, but I imagine trying to leave it would also be uncomfortable. Change just seems to be painful no matter what. Even if the change is positive, it's hard. God, I just don't even know how to end this, but I'm just bringing it before you. God, I'm so tired. And then we start to go up. So this last letter to God that I'll share with you, this is 1 year later, senior year at college, October 3rd, 2011. Dear Heavenly Father, okay, I need you so badly. I'm back. Lord, where do I start? Where do I start? Right now, I sort of want to scream. Yes, well, actually, I don't really want to scream literally. I want the scream to just pour out from within me without me having to go to the effort of yelling. Lord, I know that you are good. You are good. I trust you. I have to trust you. What am I doing? What in the heck am I doing, Lord? Lord, God, oh my gosh, I'm off of medication. What the heck? Lord, I'm a bit overwhelmed. Scratch the bit. I'm crying out right now, Lord. I am crying. How long? How stinking long must this chaos rage in my brain? God, I'm just yelling right now because I know that you can hold me amidst these screams. Lord, just when I think I'm discovering purpose and direction, I get caught up in a whirlwind of distraction and anxiety, and I can't see straight anymore. Lord God, you are good, you are good, you are good. I'm overwhelmed, I'm in over my head, I feel so turned around. God, should I just go back on medication? Maybe I should. I just don't want to lose the sense of myself again. God, why do I have to choose? Why do I have to choose between being sedated and less plagued and feeling my emotions, yet feeling a strong sense of the negative ones? Maybe I idealize this state of being off meds. Do I think I'm accomplishing something? God, maybe I should just go back on meds. Should I? That will take a lot of work again, Lord. All caps. Jeez Louise, why? God, I have so many reasons to praise you, but I'm back in the thick of it at this moment. Who I am is not who I was. I really don't want to have to deal with the hassle of medication. Thank you for my daily bread, Lord. Smiley face. I'll close with the letter from God. So, yes, I was on the brink of going clinically insane. So when I say this letter is from God, you have to take it with a grain of salt. But it was the next day that I went fully hypomanic. They correctly diagnosed me, got me on the right medication, and it's like my life finally began. This is my most prized possession. So it was a little over 10 days after college graduation, 9 years after my breakdown that started it, May 2012. Dear Amanda, I know about your bloated stomach, your indigestion, your feelings of guilt about sleeping 12 to 13 hours. You feel guilty about going to bed at midnight or past midnight. You think you cause your pain because you don't exercise right, eat right, hang out with friends right, pray right, worship right, serve right, talk right, think right. You think you can fix it if you'd only try harder to perceive my voice through prayer, your thoughts, conversations, TV, movies, my word. You think that when Paul says, give thanks always and pray continually, that you must literally do that. Give me a second. Oh, freaking A, man. You're so torn by opinions you've heard and the voices in your head, what to think and how to act, that you're in pain. You care. I've given you a heart of compassion and love. You thirst for righteousness, and your thirst will be slaked. People know you love and care, but remember that is my gift to you. I have been working on you your whole life that you might do good works I've prepared you for. You've been doing many of them along the way. I invite you to rest. I know you think of the verse, trembling in fear, but do I not also say, peace I leave with you? Oh, golly. Peace, Amanda. Peace. Normally I'm paid to do this. Now, yes, my thoughts are higher than yours. My ways are higher than your ways, but does that necessarily mean you should be afraid? I have given you a spirit of freedom to not fall back into a spirit of slavery to fear. There is no condemnation for you because you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord. My spirit is in you because you can do these things. Seek my kingdom, forget what lies behind, press onward. I have freed you to forget about caring for yourself. Do you honestly think I can't care for your needs? I know you trust me. My spirit is working in you to trust me. Remember that growth looks like more love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. You don't have to be jealous. You don't have to be afraid. I love you. I make you beautiful when you are skinny, muscular, bigger, bloated, not bloated, because I have given you a beautiful heart. I am working miracles in your life because of my name's sake. Your weakness allows me to shine, and yet I long for your healing. love God. He didn't sign it. I would follow with like, these are the best words I've got for you, God. Please do something big. And then I went hypomanic. So yeah, I'm here today because of those letters, those conversations, that conversation and that continuing conversation. Thank you for leaving space. I think I've talked way too long. I haven't slept for 2 months. I really pray I can do that now. But my prayer is that as we tell these stories, we can genuinely know each other more and love each other more and be loved more. Because we can only feel loved to the extent that we feel known. I'm going to go hide under a rock.
A toast to being known.
Thank you.
The last storyteller is very special to me because she is someone I've known for almost all of my adult life. Her name is Grace Huang. She calls San Mateo her home, and if you ask her what she does right now, she'll say, I'm on a mission to redefine women's health. Exactly. Talk to her about that. Okay, her go-to comfort food and song is Kimchi Fried Rice, and We're Gonna Go Far by Noah Kahan. All right, why did she say yes to this invitation? I did not accost her in a parking lot, but she says she can't say no to me. Bring us home, Grace.
All right. Thank you to all my fellow storytellers. Thank you all for being here. I thought I would just get vulnerable right out of the gate and say 2 weeks ago I turned 50. I took a trip to the optometrist. So I've got this at like 16 point. I got my invitation to join AARP, of course, like right on the day. I was very blessed to have this flurry of messages and floral bouquets from friends and family. Simultaneously, our son just started his first year in college, so lots of milestones to celebrate. Naturally, 50 is a time for reflection, future thinking. You know, you ask yourself, have I done enough with my life at this point? Have I met enough people? Have I traveled, to enough countries? Shouldn't I have read the Bible at least once by now? Also questions like, should I have confidence in my purpose? Or where should I be in my relationship and my walk with God? What should that actually look like, right? Lots of shoulds. It fuels, existential and menopausal anxiety, for sure. Church has been a core memory of mine for as long as I've known. And according to my mom, we actually started attending church when I was 2 years old, because that's when she became a Christian. And it's worth kind of taking a detour into her walk with God just for a little bit. So Mom was the first in our family to accept Jesus into her life back in 1977. She had spent hours standing at a Korean Southern Baptist revival, and if you've ever been to that, it sort of looks like people wailing and yelling hallelujah over and over and over again, speaking in tongues, slain by the Spirit. I don't know, Matt, maybe this is bringing back some memories of your Pentecostal experience. But as an observer, it's definitely not a calming experience. However, it's in the context of this divination that my mom felt compelled to raise her hand as a way to welcome Jesus into her life. And as she describes it, because she feared it would be the only opportunity she would get that chance. And also the way she describes it is that in that moment, her body and her spirit were actually separated. Like she literally raised her hand, closed her eyes, and she had this supernatural experience. She saw a bright light. It was incredibly peaceful, and it was joyful too. So as much as I question a little bit of that experience, how can I, right? It was hers and it was authentic. And Jesus welcomed her quite literally in a vision. So she describes this as this frightening level of crying, but also a newfound courage for her. Okay, so that's the backdrop to my relationship with church. Naturally, I was led to believe from a very early age that church is the only place that you find God. We would go to church not only on Sundays, but also on Wednesdays and at 6 a.m. in the morning for prayer, and on Christmas and on New Year's Eve, and we were in church all the time. I even went to a preschool that was housed in our church, so it just felt like I was constantly in church. And initially, I actually really loved church as a young kid because that was the heart of our Korean American community. Just as, Adnan described, right? It was such a strong community. Without fail, my grandma would bring us just like piles of Japanese candy, which, every kid loves. And it was the only place you could get $1 bibimbap that was prepared like en masse by the Korean church ladies every lunch for the entire congregation. Just to plant a seed here at 12. There was family, there was fellowship, there was food, which is very central to my lived experience. And so those were all the pillars of the church that I knew and that I loved as a 7-year-old. But one day I realized that God is not always present in church. In fact, I was in Sunday school, which then was taught by the head pastor's wife. And we were kind of rowdy. Some of us were a little chatty in the classroom, and so she threatened. She said, Sammy over here, and Sammy was her oldest son, he's going to put masking tape on the next person who says anything, who speaks up. It's still such a visceral experience for me, because guess who was the next person to open her mouth? That was me. And so Sammy walked over, took 3 pieces of masking tape, and covered my mouth. And so literally my mouth was sealed shut. And I sat for the rest of Sunday school, silenced. Tears streaming down my face. And I'm pretty sure I did not meet God in church that day. And if I did, I'm pretty sure I walked away believing that God is a cruel God and God is a punishing God, and his greatest priority is strict obedience. I miss my grandmother, who passed away because she was such a foil to that version of God, or that version of who I thought God was, because she was boundlessly generous. And through her, I found that God was sometimes frustrated with me, but so generous and, of course, full of unconditional love. So then, at the age of 10, my family and I actually moved to Seoul, Korea. Back then, there was no hint of K-pop demon hunters, no K-pop at all, even on the horizon, and there was only one fast food chain called Family Burger. And I was a really confused kid in a foreign country in search of belonging, in search of, kind of personal identity and definitely cultural affiliation. And at that time, Korea was still considered a developing country, and despite, the years of Christian missionaries, there were very few English-speaking churches. So I actually took the city bus and this was when I was 10, to youth group at my parents' Korean church, where hundreds, just like rooms full of young kids came and sat in pews organized by their Sunday. Hello? Okay, I have a joke about God calling, but okay, there I am. Yeah, I'll call him back. Okay, I've lost my spot. All right, so there were just hundreds of kids organized in rows by their Sunday school. And I brought my English Bible, my broken Korean, and I would come, and of course there was a. Thank you. All right. Okay. And if it does, we should really stop and answer it. Okay. So, week after week, I actually became the target of the girls who sat behind me. Every service, they would surreptitiously start to pull strands of my hair and then throw like little tiny wads of paper into my lap. And, they did everything to make me feel like God was there in church. But the chaser to this bullying was actually one of the girls in my Sunday school class. I don't even remember her name. She would take me to the department store playground after church and just exercise her curiosity. She would ask me all kinds of questions about the States. She would ask me to read my English Bible, and she would teach me Korean. And if I could find her today, I would tell her that through her, I experienced a joyful and a safe God. Each decade of my life has been marked by many revelations about God's character, but in my early 20s, something pretty profound happened. In April of 1998, I took a road trip. I was in my last year of college with two friends of mine, a brother and sister duo. We hopped into our rental Jeep Grand Cherokee, and we headed towards the Canyonlands, Utah, for a week of hiking, camping, living unshowered, great meals in the desert. After several hours of driving, we passed Reno into Fernley, Nevada. And with the last song on my Indigo Girl CD playing, I fell asleep at the wheel. Everyone had fallen asleep. Jason in the front seat and Nancy in the back, lying down without her seatbelt on. The accident report showed that we had drifted across all 4 lanes of 80, and our car had rolled as soon as it hit the shoulder. Nancy was thrown out of the window and crushed under the car. My first memory of the crash was a sharp pain in the back of my head as I was transferred into the helicopter that airlifted me away from the scene to the hospital. I'm gonna get through this. And then my next memory was hearing the paramedics say that Nancy was dead upon arrival. I was shattered physically with 21 broken bones and a collapsed lung. And of course, I was paralyzed emotionally. I was racked with guilt and deep emotional and physical pain, and I was so angry. I was angry at God for having left me behind to face the burden of accusations, silent judgment, and years, really years of searching for why. Why did this happen? I guess you could say that my world was burning, as was the world of Nancy's family. She had just passed the California bar. She had just co-signed a loan with her parents on their first house. There was nothing but hopes and dreams in front of her. But it was in this time of anger, pain, and really true wrestling with the Spirit, both my spirit, God's Spirit, that he showed up time and time again. He showed up in the ICU room through friends who flew out to Nevada just to sit by my side because I was physically and emotionally wrecked to say much. They just sat there. He showed up through the physical therapist at the hospital who both helped me practice walking every day. I'm trying not to look at Andrew. as well as purchase clothes with her own money so I could fly home. I had busted my left elbow and later needed multiple surgeries where just picking up a Dixie cup was the result of hours and hours of therapy. So God continued to show up. He showed up through my mom, who would drive me from Milpitas, which is where my grandparents lived, to Stanford, and wait in the parking lot for an hour between classes so I could finish school and graduate. He even showed up through my auto insurance agent, who, after learning about my accident, reached out to say, "Don't worry, you focus on healing. This was not your fault. You'll be okay." I later learned that he was a Christian. It's really hard to reconcile in my mind how simultaneously the most sorrowful and yet richest experience of my life can coexist. But this is why God is such a mystery. In the face of my pain and despair, he showed me what a servant's heart looks like, and I experienced a God who is compassionate, empathetic, and non-judgmental. So in the 28 years since my accident, I have continued to meet the many faces of God at the peaks and troughs of my marriage, through a broken and rebuilt relationship with my son, through a recent bout with precancer, and so on and so forth. So when the concept of Dwell first emerged, I was both excited and skeptical. I thought, church in a building with rows of chairs? I said to Eunice and Karina, what if we call it At the Table? And just broke bread together all the time. That's a plug for Dwell dinners, by the way. We could have church in people's houses, get raw and vulnerable, and share our stories. Well, here we are. Clearly, the trauma of my past still has me hyper-vigilant about what could go wrong in church, about how I may not actually find God here. But here's my hope that, like my friends, like my caregivers, like my mom and dad, that we all just keep showing up. Because there's so many sides of God that he keeps revealing to me and likely to you all. My experiences have taught me that that could happen anywhere, crazily, even in church. Thank you.
All right, Grace, what is your celebration or toast for us?
I want to toast to the next 50 years, first of all, that we might all see and know God in all the places.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to invite Matt up to wrap us up. Thank you for bearing with us. This is just the heart and soul of Dwell.
Let's give it up for our storytellers again. That was a brave and generous gift that you gave to us. Thank you. Dwell Church is coming up on 18 months old, and we are an experiment to see what happens when we try to build a church based on 5 novel core values: Jesus-centered, research-based, trauma-informed, diverse, affirming, and inclusive. And one of the remarkable things that we're learning is that it feels like this. One of my deep convictions is that Dwell Church doesn't belong to me or our leadership team. It belongs to us, and we are building it. And this is a way that we are building into the fabric and texture of this community together. It's really lovely to see churches pretty similar to Dwell popping up all over the country, and that we get to connect with them in different ways through different little networks. And when I meet up with those leaders, or sometimes I go to those conferences, I think, wow, it feels so safe to be in those rooms. This is a movement of safe, vulnerable spaces. And so, storytellers, tonight, you gave us a gift that let us feel safe to be ourselves. You gave us all permission to keep being ourselves. Thank you for that. there's something that I think about underneath those core values and underneath the sensation of vulnerability and connection that we get to share together. And that's that for much of my life, I thought of Jesus as good news in a very specific and narrow way. That he died on the cross for my personal sins so that I might one day escape this burning world and go to heaven. But I've since learned in decades of listening and studying that he meant something much grander and more majestic, which was that through Jesus, God's presence was coming to us. That his work on the cross was to remove all the obstacles so that you and I could find God in all of our messes. That is the promise, that in the burning world, God is in the mess. And so thank you for helping us to remember, or maybe even believe for the first time, that God is at work in every bit of it. We have a couple of traditions at Dwell that we do most Sundays, and one is to be silent. Most Sundays we just sit here for 2 minutes and listen for the voice of God. And I couldn't help but think that I was also struck silent by the beauty and power of these stories, and that together we heard something of the rumblings of Jesus' voice in them. One of the other traditions I'll introduce in a moment, had we not dismantled our computer here, I would be inviting you, if you're new, to connect more deeply with Dwell Church. At the very least, get a mug or a pint glass. We've also been discerning what does it mean for us to think about the question, what do we do while the world is burning? Starting next week, we'll begin a series called The Spiritually Formed Imagination. You and I have been given a vocation, a task, and that is to imagine an alternative and better version of this world, and then to build it in Jesus' name. So we'll go on that journey together. And my personal favorite of our weekly traditions is that everyone helps clean up. It's especially important this week because since we have gone wonderfully and gloriously long, we're 7 minutes away from having to be out of here. So it would be great if everyone could help clean up. Head to one of those kids' ministry environments or clean up everything in here. We love you all very much. Thank you for being here. We'll see you next week.